Okay, great. Welcome everyone. My name is Tricia Keith, and I am an end of embodiment doula, a home funeral guide, a funeral celebrant, and a grief companion. And I'm here today with Caffyn Jesse, the author of the book Love and Death in a Queer Universe. And a little bit about Caffyn. She is one of the founding members of the Somatic Sex Educators Association in Victoria, BC, as well as the creator of the Intimacy Educators Training course, which I took and was my lead-in to meeting Caffyn and her work and reading her book. So part of our interview today is sort of holding both of those, the intimacy educator training, what I learned, what I grew towards and continue to grow towards, but also what your book is outlining for us. And welcome, Caffyn. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Tricia. I really feel honored to be in this dialogue with you and to, you know, through my life and work as a teacher and practitioner of sacred intimacy, I, I wasn't thinking a lot about death and dying, and until I hit, my elder years and sort of got into the hard inquiry of like, how do I do this? And I found like that the tools and practices from the world of sacred intimacy, together with my listening to the natural world, my my inquiries into the science of ourselves, as well as our molecules, the quanta of us, gave me some, I think, insights, practices, ways of being with aging and dying that I shared in this book, Love and Death, that we're talking about. And so it was such a wonderful convergence to connect with you, with your profession, with your focus on uh, on death and grief and end of embodiment, and your understandings, and feel like how they merged with the intimacy educator training. And it feels like a great convergence of souls. So I'm excited to be in this conversation with you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Caffyn. I just want to touch on what you've just said. And you mentioned working as a sacred intimate, but also you're listening to the natural world. And that encompasses our aging and our dying. And I feel like, I mean, I'm not the first to say, people have said this before me, that the more we heal our relationship to death, the more we heal our relationship to earth. And your book really brings that into our bodies as well. Our cells, our molecules, the no separation between the molecules outside us to the molecules inside us, and the mystery in all of it. So I'm so excited by your book, and I can get very excited in talking about it. So I'll just try and stay grounded. Um, Catherine, I'd like to start with you reading from your book and from page one, and the poem that you've written in page one that opens your book and really opens a philosophy to to embodied love as we age.
Thank you, Tricia. So this is my little inquiry. Can I learn to grow old and die in ways that truly welcome and accommodate aging and death? Can my increasing vulnerability become a guide instead of something to hide?
hmm hmm Yeah. Yeah. There's so much there. Um, our increasing vulnerability become a guide instead of something to hide. And I see that with the elder people in my family and my older friends who may have some cognitive decline that they are aware of, slash, yeah, I mean, learning to live with and as we age, how we care for our bodies changes and all the things.
Yeah, I think this constant focus on overcoming vulnerability and um, trying to make us well and healthy and safe and all the things, like we're not taking on the journey of aging and dying in the ways that will like land and resource us and change our culture in really good ways if we can just like accept like what this is and not keep trying to hide it and deny it and ignore it and change it and justify it. It's something quite profound that we are in this society where so many people are growing old and dying and becoming more vulnerable, more dependent, more helpless, more in pain and greater pain and in that's actually the journey, not the trying to make that not true.
The management of it. hmm hmm So do you see yourself these days like within your um with the community that you live in and the people that you know? Is there something changing there? Is there something cultivating there that um that you've grown into as you age, or can you speak to that more directly?
So many things. I mean, by the time you get to my age, you've got a whole lot more friends on the other side of the ground than this side.
Mm,
And so, it's a different relationship with Earth, a different relationship with frailty and incapacity, like with limits, dependency on the people in my intimate sphere, loneliness, not mattering in the same way,
mm,
in terms of having a career, having a role as a spouse or community leader, different roles that I played in my employment and my relationships. Yeah, there's just a whole lot more spaciousness around who I am and what space I have to create meaning and lovingness and a listening body, a body that listens to its own um, self, rather than always trying to overcome or have it be different. Um, and an intimate circle that isn't constrained by roles and rules, but more. Um, and yet there's a commitment and a like like we're kind of stuck with each other. Like it's not a good time in life to be going off in a huff and starting over.
mm. Right. Yeah. 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 hmm Yeah. So the journey into vulnerability, the journey into aging, and and I imagine that this is something that you have been cultivating for decades, Caffyn, with your work as a sacred intimate, that you have been the the midwife to many people embracing their vulnerability through erotic touch, through safe touch, and midwifing them to their own liberation. Would you say that that's a direct path? That's been a path for you?
Um, Certainly, like through my own healing journey, I got involved in the world of sacred intimacy, fairly late in life. I was already 40. Um, Became a practitioner and a teacher in that field. And so there's been a focus on erotic well-being and healing the trauma that's so ubiquitous in this culture that's full of sex negativity and exploitation and people not feeling empowered to listen to their bodies and discern what they want and ask for it without shame and so on.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's been a huge focus of my life, and I feel like it gives me a bit of a unique perspective on this journey of aging and ending. Uh, One aspect of that is like having learned um, to inhabit more of my full spectrum nervous system and to
Mm.
encourage other people to do so. Like so much of how we're taught to inhabit our nervous system in this dominant Western culture is to stay within a very narrow range. A lot of people are stuck in danger management. So it's like fight, flee, appease, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's such a relief if you can get out of that, really reactive way of feeling one's embodiment into a more spacious place of just like more tolerance, this so-called window of tolerance where um, we can just feel, resourced to care for ourselves and others and not be so reactive. But which is great, and many therapists teach that and guide that, and that's a wonderful part. But as a sex person that's companioning people in sex and sexual embodiment,
Hmm.
there's encouragement to go, at the pace of trust into more expanded parts of our nervous system, into the ecstatic
Hmm.
dimensions, into like being able to orgasm and surrender the self and feel like the sense of lingering and deep satisfaction and savoring contentment and so
Hmm.
we're like it's the many encouragements and support for expanding beyond that window of tolerance into more larger, less ordinary and safe sort of dimensions of our nervous system.
Hmm.
And I realized, like in writing this book, that that's actually in ancient and indigenous cultures around the world, there's those teachings about how to inhabit our full spectrum nervous system are just an ordinary integrated part of the culture in rites of passage, rituals, and public ceremonies and celebrations, grief rituals, um, and different forms of teaching around the erotic. Uh,
Hmm.
but our culture, or the dominant Western culture, don't know if I want to call it ours, but it has repressed all those teachings and practices
Hmm.
um, that are about inhabiting outer edges of our nervous system. And so, you know,
Mm.
but as a in the study and practice of reclaiming our sexuality, but we go there. And this is, when we're thinking about aging and dying, we're thinking about going into those more extreme states where, things are intolerable. They are, we are learning to die to, the orgasm is like the little death, but we hopefully will get lots of practice with that before the big one.
Right,
It's that surrendering of the self, that going into states of savoring and satisfaction. This is what we need to learn to do.
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you for that. Caffyn, just after that poem that you wrote on page one, you also wrote, since the particles and energies of me with the birth of the began, sorry, I read that again. Since the particles and energies of me began with the birth of the universe, what does the stardust of me know that my brain is unaware of? So I want to ask you now, what does your brain today know since writing this book and having it published in 2022? What does your brain know of the stardust in you? It's kind of a funny
Well,
question.
my brain knows lots of things because I've studied, the quantum physics and um, understand, like that chapter delves into the how the stardust in us gives us great relationship advice. Um, the yeah, how the fundamental forces that can be understood through physics are ways of languaging things that we experience as humans in our
Mm,
intimacies and
mm,
ecstasies. And so that, yeah, and beyond that sort of brain's understanding,
hmm
I feel like this, that, the words try and create a path, an invitation that like I'm still following to learn, like not just with my cognitive mind, but with my body, like to listen to the quanta and the molecules of me and the cells and like that know things that the brain can't know or doesn't know. But that the stardust in me already knows, like how to be in the ongoing attunement, like with self and other. That's how, like, hadrons stay together is through this, like, the distinctiveness of self and then the ongoing attunement with other, or the, how to exist in relationships with enough spaciousness and enough like commitment to really last, as the atoms of us have lasted so many years, and like how to, as the neutrons of us know how to savor satisfaction and let it decay into longing and, unpredictably to just be the in that state of like enoughness and like the delicious satisfactions and to know like when you study the nervous system, that savoring of satisfaction, that's where our neural rewiring happens. And so, I like that's something I'm still rewiring myself, like so that I know satisfaction at a deeper and deeper level. I think like finding that peace, finding that capacity to savor and rest in peace, like before I have to actually do the big rest in peace.
hmm
It's an ongoing learning. So,
mm
but
mm.
I figured out about the learning by studying and attuning to the molecules of me and the stardust of me because they already know it. And like the whole thing about gravity, how the self and the universe is organized, and how we can organize like our belonging to the earth by organizing ourselves around our center of gravity, that zero space that's has to be come into being through our own awareness. It's real, but it's also imaginary.
Mm-hmm.
uh, how we belong to the earth. I feel like, oh, okay, I understand the science of it with my brain, but to understand it with my being and my way of being,
Mm-hmm.
still, after all these years, an evolving process and practice, like a embodied practice to try and give myself that practice. And I include some practices in the book, but I'm always coming up with new ones for myself of just, going and lying down on the earth and surrendering my center of gravity to the earth, or, doing all these different ways to practice uh, the understandings that our stardust already knows.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm, thank you. I wrote down a couple of things that you said. The words that try to create a path. Because I feel so much of what you say. I can't say that I know what you say, like with words, but I feel so much of what you say. And and the way that you weave this understanding, this paradigm together. And I also wrote down commitment and spaciousness for long-lasting relationships, a commitment and a spaciousness to long-lasting relationships. Yeah, those felt especially important to me.
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, like, you know, uh, there's a bunch of science in this book, but I'm a I've never formally studied science, so it's kind of a playful engagement with science, but it's like I feel like when you get something that's true, you can feel it, right? Like you don't have
Hmm.
to,
Hmm.
yeah, and so that's how I try and language like the science. It's just like this feels true. And so yeah,
It
yeah,
feels true inside your nervous system.
yeah,
It
yeah,
makes me sit up taller. It makes me root down energetically and rise up energetically and feel my spaciousness,
yeah.
uniqueness, and my interconnectedness.
Like, like there that what you said, that, you know, um that Rilke poem about yeah, if we surrender to Earth's intelligence, we'll rise up rooted. It,
Hmm.
it's these like poets like Rilke have been giving language to these understandings that emerge as in physics a century later, um, and yet or Rumi for that matter, or other poets and
Yeah.
storytellers, these understandings, like you can see them in quantum physics or in poetry or in legends
Hmm.
because they're true. You can feel that, right? If we surrender to Earth's intelligence, then we'll rise up rooted. And you can talk about that in the language of physics, or just like know it. And when you know it, you can do it better, right?
Hmm. 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 And come back to it over and over again. It won't abandon you.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody can take that away from us, right?
Nobody can take that away from you. Exactly. Caffyn, with the same attunement and curiosity that you teach in your intimacy educator training, you bring to growing old together in embodied love. And I would like to ask you to now read from page 8.
Mm.
I love this passage so much.
Where does it begin, Tricia?
The second sentence of the second paragraph, we touch to contradict.
Mm. We touch to contradict self-loathing, soothe the effects of trauma, and replace the imprints of painful, unwanted touch with pleasurable, respectful touch of toes, ears, scars, and thighs. We love people's minds by coaxing communication and honoring each person in their desires while honoring our own boundaries, offering each person we touch our unconditional positive regard. We invite new neural pathways linking brain with heart, pelvis, voice, and feeling. We love people's spirits. I feel my own spirit soar as I greet yours with wonder and amazement. We connect emotionally and offer love as one wounded human being to another. Riding waves of emotion, we often travel from deep grief to elation in a single session.
Mhm.
We talk and touch at the pace of trust with care for each person's neural learning zone.
Yeah, that just makes me feel so much. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, this has been the joy of my work to like to um, work with human souls in bodies, right? And
Yeah.
to be able to like find ways to touch other souls and to be touched like in an embodied way, um,
At the pace of trust.
at the pace of trust. Yeah.
Mm.
And that like which requires both people to be in that ongoing discernment of like what is trust, like to to exceed like what is right for them, and then come back to make repair,
Yes.
to be in that devotion to like we're touching souls here. And yeah, that's I feel like yeah, that became my passion when I got to work in the field of sacred intimacy and bring some of my teachings to the field
Mm-hmm.
and develop the intimacy educator training that you took online. Yeah, that it's like it's about like making love, like making embodied love.
Mm, mm, mm,
That's what we're capable of. And
mm.
yeah, in these practices, and imperfect love, but love that really feels and finds us, and that's so different from the love as I was taught to imagine it in the ordinary world of just as some kind of optional reward for following the rules or playing the roles or being deserving of love. Like
Mhm.
this is something different, and it feels like this is true. Like this is what the cells of us know. This is what the molecules of us do. This is what ecosystems do. Like how they flourish, um, and we can do it with one another.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. How they flourish and how they improvise and become something of a third, that there's another creation that the two of them together create that was spontaneous and unknown until it happened. There's no knowing where you're going to land.
That ongoing emergence, that like dialectical engagement of two unique souls or three or like soul systems. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
that's been the blessing of my work, and I feel it has so much relevance to the whole inquiry about how do we do this aging and dying thing
Right.
in love with one another and the planet. that like letting go of being oneself and being important and mattering as a living, unique like being and body and like offering ourselves to the earth and to the future generations as something that we can learn over the span of our lives to do um, and support one another in doing in good ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that with love and loving touch and touching souls.
Yeah. Yeah. As people are aging and dying, like, can you tell me more about how you cared for your mom and how you cared for Myrnie, as she.
Well, I've had a long journey with many times in my life with companioning people in their dying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but most recently, my partner and my mother both had a long journey with dementia. Um, and Myrnie, my partner, yeah, for a long time, was increasingly disabled and felt the agony of increasing vulnerability and like really resisted it and tried to make it different for a long time. That became, extremely difficult. But once she crossed a threshold into accepting vulnerability and needing help and enjoying help, we just went into a beautiful space with her, um, with our love, where we could really meet like in a space of radiant lovingness that because it wasn't encumbered by cognitive processes and thoughts about, whether we doing it right or uh, deserved love or all the things that inhibit love. It could just be like an embodied enjoyment of the radiant love
Mm.
that, as long as I could keep her safe enough, uh, because, obviously she was completely vulnerable, um, and very, like if she didn't feel safe, she would go into really intense experience of fear, uh,
Okay.
uh, which would, radically change her behavior and capacity. My mother was the same. I mean, I was lucky in the way, like that, but I learned so much about like being able to show up with someone with dementia in ways that did support that experience of radiant lovingness that it just felt so epic. It
Mm-hmm.
spoiled me for different forms of lovingness. It felt so beautiful and pure. Um, and not to say that everyone can access this with dementia. There's so many different forms of dementia and ways it can go.
Right.
But I just was really lucky. And, there were certain things that I could do that helped that be true um, in with both of my partner and my mother over many, yeah, it's been like a 20 plus year journey with dementia.
Mm-hmm. And that, but also what I'm hearing is that you developed the capacity to meet them there
Oh
in
yeah, yeah.
radiant love, in an embodied love. You were so much part of that love making.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like I was able to bring the insights and skills from my work in sacred intimacy to, oh, like what's this now? Yeah, how do we meet this?
Mm-hmm.
And learn and grow my own soul, like to be able to go in and,
And
engage with
grow
the
your own soul. Wow. Hmm.
Well, it
So,
took a lot of growth to be able to like, to go in and offer them my love and what they needed, like this unconditional goodwill, this like radical, like this is not the place where I process my grief or have anxieties or wants or things like all that had to help it happen elsewhere.
right.
Yeah,
So you were supported
so that-
elsewhere in
yeah,
order to show up
so
that
that
way.
I could show up with what
Right.
they needed to
Right.
share love. And so, yeah, I mean, it was huge learning. And lots of times I failed at it massively. But anyway, I at least knew what I tried to be.
Yeah. Yeah. The care for the caregiver. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you received enough doses of care for the caregiver yourself
Yeah,
to
so
show up
essential. Yeah.
in a resourced way for them.
Yeah. And that was, part of my soul's growth was this like realizing like, wow, I can't do this alone. I need care. I need help. I need support. I need community. I need
Mm-hmm.
a team. I need to be part of a team. And like, oh, even in the dying of my partner,
Hmm.
because we'd had so many experiences of almost dying and now it's finally like, this is it. But it's like, I realize even now, like at this very last day, I need help. I need a break so I can be here like with full love and full heart. And luckily, I mean, I had the perfect person to call to come and be with her and
Uh-huh.
cherish her so I could have a break and come back to be there like 100% with love and patience and just like to be with that dying and that embodied process. And so that, yeah, when I think about like resilience, that experience of being with dying and feeling the web of support and community, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that I could learn that, in my decades or more with her dementia, to have that in those last days and hours. Uh, that was huge growth for my soul.
Well, it sounds like it was community growth too.
I,
Would you say that there was that a community came out of it and that a community lasted in some ways afterwards? Like you can never be strangers with the people that were part of that web at that time.
yes, it's true. I mean, I don't feel it's
It's
lasted in the way that I would love to feel it last. I feel like, yeah, there's so much here that I wish to share, and maybe like you and I are the community that
yeah.
emerges from it. I feel like there's not sort of the social space for lasting community around this experience of aging and dying. I mean, I have intimate, lasting, loving relationships, but in the larger community, not so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Things come and go a lot, especially in the last few years. I find that there's a lot of unthreading that has been happening since COVID, that just a shedding that has happened, a culling that has happened that I've seen in my life and other people's lives. We've become much more um, singular or nuclear in our lifestyles. Um, I don't know. I have ideas on why, but I don't want to go there right now. Um, yeah, how are we feeling, Caffyn? How you feeling? Do you wanna take another trip inside the book?
Well, perhaps it's time to give our listeners a break and and
Okay.
come back
Okay.
another day.
That sounds just perfect. Yeah.
We
Um,
we've spoken of wanting to do a series of discussions, so yeah.
yeah, this is a good place to pause and And yeah, thank you. We will reconnect very soon and continue the conversation.